missing the word. Don't go after cat, you scared. Put up my friends, get fly like a bird. We keep the commandments, don't know what you heard. Pull out some scripts like I'm a director. I stay with my sword, I'm ready whenever. It's the end of the world.
Been told we were different names, right? So if I ask you what's your nationality, what you gonna tell me your nationality is? Mexican, right? What about you? Same thing, Mexican. Mexican means mixed people, right? Because it was a caste system, so they call you a Mexican, right? But can you find Mexican in the Bible? No, right? So who are we according to God? You know what I'm saying? Because I used to think I was African American. You can't find that in the Bible. You can't find black. You can't find Cuban, Puerto Rican. None of those names are in the Bible, right? So now we got to start asking, who are we in the Bible? Who are we to God, right? So what we do is we set up signs. We got history books and things like that, and we read the Bible and it starts showing us who we are according to the Bible, right? So if you look at this sign over here, on the end, we got a sign on the right. On your left side of the sign, it got what God called us in the Bible. On the right side, it got called what we were called in slavery, and when we got conquered, right? By the conquistadors, right? Because another thing the so-called Mexicans call themselves is what? Hispanics, right? You know what the word Hispanic means? Property of Spain, right? Why are you called the property of Spain? Why you call a Mexican in their caste system? Because they mix with you, right? But we're going to show you what God calls you in the Bible, because what God calls you in the Bible is more valuable than all those things, right? All right, give me Deuteronomy 28:15. We do it after that, good. Give me Deuteronomy 28:15. Bring it out! Because we got to show our people what the Bible is really saying. You been to church before? A lot of people go to church all the time, but we're going to see if these things... Right, everybody, right? Everybody mixed in, right? But what the thing is what we getting taught in those churches is what's being taught that's in the actual Bible. Like in the church, had the church ever told you who you are in the Bible? No, right? So we got to get to it. Let's see, Deuteronomy 28, right? So let's read 1 and 1 real quick. Let's get one. Hold that. Give me 1 and 1. You heard of Moses, right? What Moses do? Part the Red Sea. What did he do when he parted the Red Sea? Who did he bring to the Red Sea with him? Why did he part the Red Sea? What were they doing? Where were they coming from, right? They were in Egypt, right? So they was in Egypt doing what? What were the Israelites doing in Egypt? Why? You remember Moses had to say, let my people go, right? Because they was what? They was slaves, right? They was bringing them out. Egyptians started chasing them. He split the Red Sea for them to get through. Now we're going to get the context of what happened when they got out on the other side of the Red Sea, right? Read this.
Book of Deuteronomy chapter 1 verse 1. These be the words which Moses spake unto all Israel.
Right, so who was with Moses coming through the Red Sea? Israel, right? So let's go to Deuteronomy 28:15, right? So Israel, God smote the Egyptians, did the 10 plagues, all that to free Israel, right? Split the Red Sea and brought them through, right? And this is what he told them though when they did it, because when they finished that, they was at the top of the world, right? God, they just knocked off the superpower. God was with them, right? But he told them this when they got through the other side. Read this.
Book of Deuteronomy chapter 28 verse 15. But it shall come to pass, if thou wilt not hearken unto the voice of the Lord thy God.
But he told them it's going to happen in the future. It's going to come to pass if you don't listen, hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and what? To do what?
To observe, to do all his commandments and his statutes which are commanded this day.
So not just to observe, to read them, but to do all the commandments that he says. So he told them, if you don't do this, what's going to happen?
That all these curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
So is a curse a good thing or a bad thing? It's a bad thing, right? So Moses told the Israelites when he brought them out of Egypt, freedom, he said, if you don't keep the commandments God said, all these bad things are going to happen to the children of Israel, right? Let's read one of the bad things that happened. Read that.
Cursed shalt thou be in the city.
He told the children of Israel, in the future, if you don't keep my commandments, cursed are you going to be in the city. Any city you go to, if you want to find where the drugs at, prostitution, high rates of crime, high poverty areas, what race of people do you look for? All mixed. So if I go to the hood, if I'm looking for the hood, what race of people am I looking for if I'm going to the ghetto? You know there's guaranteed going to be in the ghetto if I go there. What race of people? And who else? Blacks and Mexicans, right? But remember, who is Moses talking to right here? Israel, right? But he told them, one of the things that's going to happen to you if you don't listen to God, you're going to be cursed in the city. What else?
And cursed shalt thou be in the field.
He said, who's going to be cursed in the field, bro? Who was cursed in the cotton fields for hundreds of the years picking cotton? The Mexicans and who else? The blacks, right? What about the so-called Jewish people over there? Were they in the fields picking cotton? No, right? Even in the work field today, right? Who was the last hired, first fired? Who works the hardest job for the longest wages, for the longest hours and get the lowest wages? Mexicans and who else? The blacks. But who was Moses talking to right here? Israel, right? Give me 46. This is what we got to realize. This Bible is a true history book. A lot of times, our people fall out of touch with the Bible and stop believing the Bible because we get taught fairy tales. They took the book and made fairy tales out of it. Right. But what we're here to tell you, this is for our reality. This is reality and not just any reality. It's our reality, reality of our people. Watch this. This is what God said was going to happen to Israel.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 46. And
they here is what? Those curses, those bad things that he said was going to happen for breaking his commandments. He said what?
And they shall be upon thee for a sign and for a wonder.
He said these curses are going to be on Israel for a sign. What does a sign do? Yeah, stop sign. Like a sign, we got it right here. It's a sign that says United Express. What does that let me know? It's a United right there. It's an indicating marker. It's letting me know. The sign showed you something, right? So he said these curses are going to be upon the Israelites for a sign and a wonder. And who else?
And upon thy seed forever.
What is a man's seed? What's a man's seed, bro? A man's seed. His offspring, his children, right? So he told them 1,000 years ago, if you break these commandments, these curses are going to be upon your children for a sign forever. Is forever still going? Right, so we can look at these curses and we'll be able to see who the Israelites are.
Well, we got a curse going without this rain.
Without this rain? No, rain is actually a blessing. Because guess what? Back then, our people were farmers. In order for crops to grow, what do you need? You need rain. Without rain, you get drought, which causes famine, which causes all types of things. So rain is actually a blessing. Right. Just the mind frame that we are in now, how they've broken us down, we don't got our own land.
Bring it up.
Give me 33. This is like, that's part of the biblical prophecy I'm showing you. Like, when we used to be farmers, when Texas was Mexico, we were farmers, right? And so you needed the rain for your crops, right? But this is what God said was going to happen with that. Read that.
Deuteronomy 28:33. The fruit of thy land and all thy labors shall a nation which thou knowest not eat up.
He said the fruit of your land and all your labors, that a nation that you don't know is going to eat that up. Texas, like I said, was part of Mexico. It was the land, the fruit that grew here was yours. The resources here, the oil, the gold, all that was your people, right? But he said another nation that you didn't know, they're going to come eat their land up in the labors, to the point to where we look at rain as a curse. Because there's so much rain, we can't work. We can't go work, so it's a curse. But the crops that are being watered, your crops that are being watered that somebody else is making money off of, it's a blessing to them. If you own your land still, you will see that the rain is actually a blessing for our people. But we've been cursed so much that another nation came in and took our land. It took our labor. Because guess, anytime you ride around the town and see things being built, what people up there building? What race of people is up there building these hotels and all these things? The Mexicans, right? The black, they're the hardest working people, but we don't own none of it. We don't make the money. Once it's done, it's not your money. He said your laborers, another nation gonna eat that up. You're gonna work hard for another nation to make money. You're gonna come and get this land, but another nation gonna make the money off of it. That's what God told the Israelites was gonna happen to them, right? Keep reading that.
And thou shalt be only oppressed and crushed always.
He said you're gonna be only oppressed and crushed always. We are the most oppressed people in this land. We wake up and it's like, dang, I gotta go back to work. Dang, I'm not, you gonna do all this hard labor, we don't benefit. God said, that's gonna be you, and your spirit's gonna be crushed. Why can't we get ahead? Why are we always at the bottom? We work the hardest. They tell you, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. Work hard, that's how you're gonna make it. Who work harder than us? But we still at the bottom of society. And that's a curse. God said, if you don't keep my commandments, I'm gonna make it that way. They're gonna come take your land, you're gonna work hard and still be oppressed. This is what God told the Israelites, right? What else he told them? 48. Another part of that, why we think rain is a curse. Read that.
The book of Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thine enemy.
He said, therefore you're going to serve your enemies. Who do we serve? Who did we serve in slavery, first of all? But let's see if we still serving that enemy today. How are we going to serve this enemy and how they get here?
Which the Lord shall send against thee.
So for breaking his commandments, God sent an enemy against the Israelites, right? How he said he's going to serve them?
In hunger?
He said you're going to have to serve your enemies in hunger. Whenever we get hungry, bro, who do we get our food from? Huh? Where do we get our food from whenever we get hungry? The store, right? Would you agree with him? Who owns the grocery stores? Not us, what race of people on the grocery stores? Because whatever, God said you're going to serve your enemies when you get hungry, right? They even put a cool name, amigos. You know what I'm saying? Trying to be, oh, we friends. But they own the store. You don't own a store. They're not your friend. You just got to go to them for that. He said you're going to serve them in hunger. How else?
And in thirst.
And in thirst. All this rain we've been getting, it rains out the sky for free, absolutely free. But if you collect rain, you get a fine. You get a ticket, right? So you turn on the tap water, get a drink of water. Who you pay a water bill to? White people, right? If you want a Dasani, Coca-Cola, even if you want a beer, who you get that from? And what did God call him though? He said you're going to serve who? Yeah, he didn't say white man. What did God say? We got to use God's words. That's why I'm pointing out who he is, but we got to make sure we stay in the Bible. Because if I just jump out, what'd you say? Enemies, right? Because if I just jump out and start saying what I call them, they're going to say you racist. But I'm not racist. I'm just saying what God said, right? He said you're going to serve your enemies in hunger. You're going to serve your enemies in thirst. What else?
And in nakedness.
And in nakedness. Whenever we want clothes, who do we get clothes from, right? We picked cotton for hundreds of years in the field. You said it. But do we own any raw textiles? Do we determine who gets cotton, who don't? Can we get a free t-shirt? No, right? He said you're going to have to go to your enemies for that. What else you going to go to them for?
And in want of all things.
All things. You want a driver's license? Where'd you get it from? Birth certificate, death certificate, education, religion. He said you're going to go, Israel is going to go to their enemies for all that, right? If that ain't enough, let's see how else we're going to identify this enemy. Read this.
And he,
that enemy,
shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck.
he said their enemy, is Israel's enemy is going to put a yoke of iron upon their neck. Who put a yoke of iron upon whose necks? You know what yokes of iron is? Who put yokes of iron on our people's necks?
Wake them up.
What race of people put a yoke of iron on another race of people's neck? Who did that to us?
Bring it out.
The enemies. What race are they today? White people, right? God said, your enemy that I'm going to send against you, they're going to put them yokes of iron on your neck. That's how we know they ain't doing nothing. God doing it to us. You know what I'm saying? But he said they're going to put a yoke of iron upon your neck, and what else?
Until he have destroyed thee.
He said he's going to put a yoke of iron on your neck till he have destroyed you. Do we still rock around with yokes of iron on our neck? No. It said until, so that means it was at one point in time they was able to take them off. Why? Because you don't even care who you are no more. You accepted Mexican. You accepted being a Hispanic, the property of Spain, an American, an African American, a black. We accepted it, so they said, oh, we can take the chain out because they're not even trying to figure out who they are. They disconnected from this Bible. We don't need the neck on no more. They destroyed, right? Is that true history? Did that happen to a race of people? Who was Moses talking to though? He was talking to Israel, but who all this stuff that he said was going to happen to Israel happened to? It's happening to us. Let's see. Because you remember earlier I told you Hispanic meant what? Property of Spain, right? Did you know that God talked about Spain coming over here in the Bible? Keep reading.
Verse 49. The Lord shall bring a nation against thee from far.
He said the Lord is going to bring a nation against thee from far. So he's talking to the Israelites. He said it's going to be a nation that's going to come from you from far. Let me see the sign real quick. So come check this out with me, right? So this is America over here, right?
Right.
He said I'm going to bring a nation all the way from over here in Spain from far against you, right? And what they're going to do? Go ahead.
No! From a nation against thee from far, from the end of the earth, as swift as the eagle flieth.
I'm going to bring them from the end of the earth as swift as the eagle flyer, right? What is the sign for the so-called white man? What was the sign on the Spaniard's flag? What's the sign on the American? You got this sign right here. Hold it for me.
Wake them up.
This is second one. It's this one. Yeah. So let's look at this. All the way back then, this was the Spanish symbol. What was their symbol? What bird is that right there? An eagle, right? They had the eagle. And then you go along in history, they had Greek, they had the eagle. Rome, they had the eagle. America today, what's America's symbol? On the back of the dollar bill, what they got? Eagle, right? So God said, I'm going to send a nation against thee as swift as the eagle flies. Their sign is going to be the eagle, right? Go ahead.
A nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand.
He said a nation whose tongue thou shalt not understand, right? Because Spanish belongs to who? The Spaniards, right?
when in Los Lunas, New Mexico, it's a stone called a Decalogue stone, right? It dates before the conquistadors came over here, right? And what's written on it is the 10 Commandments. And it's written in what? Paleo-Hebrew, right? What original language was the Bible written in? Hebrew, right? So if the stone here was Hebrew and the Bible was written in Hebrew, the people, it's a connection right there, right? So when the conquistadors came over here speaking Spanish, do you think they understood what they were saying? No, he said it's going to be a nation with a tongue you can't understand, right? Read.
A nation of fierce countenance.
Oh, fierce countenance. What's your name, bro? JP. We showing our brothers right here about who the Israelites are in the Bible, right? So right now we on to Spaniard, right? You heard people call themselves Hispanics, right? Property of Spain, right? So we showing the prophecy of the Spaniards coming over here in the Bible. But God said the Israelites' enemies was going to come, right? Well, let me give you one more scripture before you go. Get that. 68. Watch this. How did our people get to America? Ships, right? You agree? We got over here on ships, right? Let's see what God said was going to happen to the Israelites, right? Read.
Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 68. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again.
He said, Lord going to bring into Egypt again. Remember, what were we doing in Egypt the first time? Remember, Moses had to say, let my people go because we were doing what? Huh? Let's get it real quick. 5 and 6. We got to show you what Egypt means in the Bible, because you'll read that and you'll start thinking pyramids and sand. No, that's not what God is saying. Let's see what he's saying. Read that.
Deuteronomy chapter 5, verse 6. I am the Lord thy God, which brought thee out of the land of Egypt, from the house of bondage.
So he called Egypt what? The house of bondage. What is bondage? Huh? Captivity, right? Slavery, right? So he said, I'm the Lord that God who brought you out of Egypt, out of the house of slavery, right? So now let's go back to Deuteronomy 28, 68. And now we understand what he's saying when he say Egypt, right? Because he said he's going to do what?
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt,
or slavery, right?
again with ships.
Hold up. God told the Israelites he's going to bring them to slavery again with ships. How did our people get here again? With ships. What other nation went to slavery on ships? Huh? The Mexicans, right? The blacks, the Mexicans. That's it though, right? But you remember God was talking to the Israelites. He said, I'm going to send you into slavery again on ships. How? Hey, read.
By the way, wherever I spake unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
That Egypt over there, you're not going to see that no more again. You're going to a new Egypt, a new house of bondage, right? Read.
And
there, wherever those boats docked, when they got us on them ships, and there, what happened?
ye shall be sold unto your enemies.
Did that happen? When they parked them slave ships, what happened to the people that was on there? They got sold to who? It said to their enemies. The same enemies that we were talking about earlier. He said they're going to sell you on ships this time. Read.
For bondmen and bondwomen.
Slave men and slave women.
And no man shall buy you.
Buy means to save or redeem. So he said once you get these curses start on you, you get put on them ships, no man going to be able to save you. Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, Marcus Garvey, Cesar Chavez, David Sanchez, keep naming them. None of them have they been able to save us? No, we still live in the ghettos. We still cursing the city, cursing the field, right? So now let's put the dots together. If God told the Israelites this was going to happen for breaking your commandments, and we the only people that happen to, who are we? Who are we? By the words of the prophecy, who are we if God said Israel gonna go, they're gonna be cursing the city, cursing the field. They're gonna serve their enemy in all things. They're gonna go on slave ships. An enemy gonna come against them. If we the only people that happen to, who was God talking to? He was talking to us, we the Israelites.
Shalom, Israel. This is Bishop Nathaniel. I want you to know that you can view all our Sabbath classes live on IUIC TV. That's right, I said on IUIC TV. Download the app today. Shalom. What is the nation? Nation is men leading by example. Nation is family. Nation is community.
is one